This actress slash comedian and voiceover artist, best known for hosting TBS's Dinner and a Movie, and providing the voice for the titular character in the Nickelodeon hit Legend of Korra. Please welcome Janet Varney.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Janet.
What's going on?
Nothing much. Just please tell the crowd about yourself.
Hold on, I gotta. Okay, we got this. Do I need to? Hi, everybody. Boy, I gotta tell you, I already can't. This is my first thing this morning, and I came in from the West Coast, so it feels like it's super early. I already can't find the things I'm allowed to say that Nickelodeon sent me, so this is gonna be gangbusters. What could possibly else go wrong? You're asking me questions. What's happening?
Oh, no, not cool.
I'm asking these guys
I'll open
questions.
the floor.
Please introduce yourselves one at a time.
Right there.
David Danzel, GeekVision.tv.
Hey, David.
Hello. Outside of Korra, you're mostly known for your comedy work, SF Sketchfest, Rip Tracks, Neil's Buff Dreams. You've done a lot of really awesome projects.
Thank you.
On the other hand, your podcast, it still has a sense of humor, but it's a much more serious and personal endeavor. What was it that inspired you to start the JV Club?
Thank you so much for bringing up the podcast. If you've listened to it, you know it's like definitely has a special place in my heart. Maybe in part because of everything you just mentioned. I'm so lucky to be a part of this kind of amazing comedy community that stretches outside of LA out into New York and San Francisco, the festival that I founded and produced. But a lot of comedy. There's just a lot of snark in comedy, and I have no problem with that whatsoever, but I also feel like I'm so lucky to know the kind of human soft side of so many funny people, not just comedians, but actors and actresses and writers, and I'm just always interested in kind of finding out what all of our vulnerabilities are, and finding the humor in that. And I think that one of the coolest things about social media now and about the kind of accessibility, it's also one of the trickiest things for people who are kind of in the spotlight because of that that self-same accessibility, is that you sort of get the chance to feel like you really know someone whose work you admire. And like I said, that can be good and bad. But if you're gonna read an article about how someone stole Christina Hendricks' phone and maybe or maybe not her boobs are featured, like why not also find out what kind of a person she is and kind of find out what makes her so wonderful and who she was when she was growing up and how she got to where she is. Because I think that ultimately the gift in the accessibility is that everyone should understand that we're all the same. And that's my favorite thing about it, is like, hey person that feels completely alone and like you just moved to a new place and you don't know anyone. This person that you might think is amazingly talented and like was always just kind of together also moved someplace and was terrified and didn't know what to do about it, and kind of worked through that. So that's sort of it's kind of ogre-y, but it's just that's one of my favorite things going on in my career right now. So thanks for asking about it. I'll give 10-minute answers for every single question.
Back there.
Dan Moore from GuysNation.com.
Hey, Dan.
You were on Entourage.
Yeah, I was.
Great show.
I didn't even have to take off my clothes either. That was like a real plus.
How was it to have a role, a real definite recurring role on a very popular TV series? How did it feel to get that? How did you get it? I mean, how did you stumble upon it? Was it?
Yeah, I auditioned for it. The cool thing about Entourage was, and I think I can say this about probably, if it happened like this for me, it probably happened like this for other people who ended up doing that show, which was, I auditioned for like the pilot before it was even picked up as a series. And I can't remember, I think I might have read for like Ari's assistant, or there was just some part that I read for, and while that was not, the role for me, they were real cool about, like, they just kept bringing in people that they liked over the seasons, and they would just say, like, the producers would say, like, don't worry, we're gonna find something for you. And I think that, Hollywood kind of trains you to be jaded because a lot of stuff doesn't work out. And so I kind of just like kept going in, and I remember I would read for, sometimes I would come in and I would just read for like the girl working at the Apple store, and I would have like 2 lines, and then I even wouldn't get that, and I was like, jeez. And then it turned out like they kind of just were saving, you know, they had this cool thing that they wanted me to come back and do more than once. So in the long run, it turned out to be worth the wait. But yeah, it's a tough business. So when someone says like, we're just trying to find the right thing for you, you're like, uh-huh. And then sometimes it actually turns out to be true.
From WHUS, I was wondering if you find a lot of similarities between your characters' personalities and your own?
Great question. I assume you're talking about Korra. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I, as yet, have not discovered that I have the ability to bend any elements. I'm always ready. Every morning I wake up and think, this could be the day. But I think, you know, I've said this before, but I think that one of the reasons that I ended up getting the part, I wish I could say that it was all of Korra's good qualities, but I think that when I was auditioning for it, I feel like my kind of like the sarcasm and the kind of like bullheadedness that I brought to the character might have been one of the things that pushed me over the top, but I think that's one of the cool things about Korra is that she's complicated and that she kind of can drive you crazy. I don't want to see, I'm not of the mind of like, I love superheroes who are flawless. I'm definitely more along the, you know, I lean heavily towards, they're just like us, but they're also burdened with this extraordinary responsibility. And so that's one of the things I love about her. So I think hopefully like my flaws and my humanity are what got me the role, and in those ways I feel like there's some similarities. Yeah, great question.
Sorry, Andy. How you doing? Alex Rouse, WHUS Radio.
Hey, Alex.
How you doing? I had a question. Basically, when you're doing the show, when you first got cast, were you aware of the Avatar franchise? Did you know just how big a deal it was, how big the fan community was? Any experience with that?
You know, I certainly was familiar with the show, and I definitely was a fan. Because I wasn't really aware of the kind of the online community, and I wasn't that familiar with cons at that point. I mean, I was, but I had never gone to one. I didn't really know. So I knew that it was, I knew that it was an extraordinary franchise, if you will, and I was a huge fan of Mike and Brian's. But when I got the part, I remember the great Sarah Noonan, who works in casting at Nickelodeon, who's just the most wonderful person. I ran into her at like maybe my second or third recording, and she kind of like pulled me aside into a corner, and she was like, "Are you ready for this?" And I was like, "I don't know." I went, "What? Yeah, I mean, sure." She was like, "No. Do you know? Do you get it?" And I was like, "I think so." And then the buzz started when it was getting ready for the series to begin, and I was like, "Oh crap! I hope people like me. This is really scary." Suddenly, it became like very real, and that's kind of an interesting thing about what I am fortunate enough to do, and I think what a lot of voice actors and on-screen actors would say as well, which is, you know, I've just finished doing this role on this FX show called You're the Worst, and it's on camera and it's premiering on July 17th. And we have been shooting for months, and you just live in this little vacuum, you know, you just live in this little world where you're like, hey, we're all making a thing! And then suddenly it goes out into the world and it becomes something completely different, and you have to kind of break out of that little bubble that you've been living in. And so that's kind of what happened with Korra. But luckily, it turned out to be like the best experience of my life. So that one turned out all right.
Any other questions?
Anna from Cosplay MIC Magazine.
What's your name?
Anna.
Hey, Anna.
Since horror has become so large, and since season 2 started, it basically exploded again. How does it feel like seeing cosplayers as Korra, and would you consider cosplaying yourself?
It's the best. That's one of my favorite things. It's one of the reasons that I do cons, is that I just, it means so much. Speaking, as I was Alex, about kind of how how it grows out of this tiny thing that you're just doing in this room with all the people who are involved with it, and then it grows to the community of people who watch it. To me, that's like another way of growing it even further, which is to get the opportunity to come and interact with people who like the show and people who cosplay. Pretty much every time I see anyone dressed as Korra or anyone from even if it's Aang or Azula, it doesn't matter. I just get so excited. I have to take a picture, and I try to like tweet and post that stuff because it's an element of what I do, pun intended, I guess. It's an element of what I do that really enriches the whole experience and the whole like kind of Avatar universe. So I love it. I'm always so excited. I'm always so interested in like the little tweaks that people make and like, what they make by hand or who they're having make it for them, all that stuff. I just love it. Yeah.
Back there, I saw your hand first.
Hi, Dan from GuysNation.com. I always want to ask somebody this question. The state of female comedy.
Yeah.
How different is it now from when you first started?
That's a great question. I definitely think it's better. I think, even with setbacks like, certain celebrities saying that women aren't funny, certainly it's better. Every time you see something like Bridesmaids, that's a really now that's sort of an old example, which is so cool. But anything like that where everybody kind of gets the wake-up call, like, oh yeah, people will buy tickets to go see a bunch of women being awesome, is a huge boon for us. The thing that is a little risky about it is that sometimes what ends up happening, and I didn't see it that much with this kind of wave, which is great, but sometimes what ends up happening is networks who don't have necessarily a lot of imagination, and it's a really tough job, it's like there's so much money in show business, and sometimes the creative parts of us forget that. You're just like, why can't I just make something good? I wouldn't trade places with an executive for the world, because it's so much pressure. But you see the sort of it's almost like there's a backlash of they'll just put anything on that's a bunch of girls, and then there's not so great stuff, and then no one thinks women are funny anymore. And I'm glad to say that I feel like this wave has really just been this increasing, upping the stakes, but also upping the quality. And I think that there's so much great stuff out there now. And one of the cool things about social media and about the internet is that, and Greg Barron just said this on my podcast, it's an equal opportunity environment, You don't have to you can be hilarious on YouTube, you can be hilarious on Twitter, and nobody is gonna say sorry, we're shutting your voice down. And I think that is, we're so lucky, and anybody who wants to get out there and be heard and seen has the opportunity, and thank God for that,
Sorry, hand.
Thanks, Amanda.
Hey.
Legend of Korra.
Legend of Korra is written exclusively by females?
3 males.
Oh, 3 males. No, actually, there's definitely at least one female writer. I don't see the writers as often because they're not necessarily in the room when I'm recording, because Mike and Brian are. But we definitely have women on the staff.
But in line with that, do you ever find yourself correcting single lines or adding lines that maybe make it a little more personal?
Yeah, you know what? I never do. And that's unusual. I mean, because I do a lot of comedy, there tends to be a lot of flexibility in that world. And so I'm super comfortable doing that. But other than, honestly, I think PJ is probably the only one that really has, brings more improv and goofiness to the table. Just major shout out to the writers and Mike and Brian, but I just don't ever feel like anything needs to be changed. I love their writing. I think they hit it, hit the nail on the head every time. Yeah.
That writing when you're voice acting as regular is actually my favorite part of it.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. Well, on behalf of them, yeah, thank you.
Saw your hand.
The Geeky Panda, the Geeky Panda from the Geeky Panda blog here. When you're,
Panda?
it's my nickname since I saw
Love
it.
it.
When you're reviewing your work, since you're a voice actress, do you ever try to enjoy your work as you're watching it, or you're kind of oh, I could have done that better, I could have done this better?
like fit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't particularly like watching myself on screen. I've shared that phobia with a lot of actors. It's just hard. And it's really easy to scrutinize. And, we all look at pictures of ourselves, like think about Facebook, someone posts a picture of you and you're like, oh, they posted that one? And sort of, we've made this like crazy decision to sort of live in that place all the time. So I don't love that. There are certain things that I like watching that I can sort of look past that, and I would say that Burning Love is one of them. I can watch that and I'm not even, everybody else is so funny that I don't have time to think about like, oh, should I have? But Legend of Korra is like always, I never think about my contribution to it or what I could have done differently, because again, you just like get swallowed into that world in the best way. And seeing someone else who happens to have a voice that, almost in my mind, it's like, she kind of sounds like me. Like, that's how much I forget that I have anything to do with it, because I'm such a fan of the show. And that's the cool thing about animation, I think, is that you can really let go of that and just focus on, like, how great the work is. And it's kind of like being a little kid in that way. Like, I never get over the magic of, oh, that's not me, but I guess it kind of is me.
We have time for 2 more questions. I saw your hand up.
Jason Lanansky, Cosplay NYC Magazine.
Hey, Jason.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
I was wondering if you have any upcoming projects besides the one you already announced?
Oh, besides the effect show. That's kind of the biggest one. That's really been swallowing up all my time in the best way. What else was I thinking I was going to say? I would say that's mostly it. I've been doing a bunch of like extra just kind of funny random characters on Sanjay and Craig on Nickelodeon, which is like the funniest. It's so funny, and it's really like gives you permission to laugh at fart jokes till the end of time. Like I'm not even embarrassed of them. They're so funny. So I've been working on that. Podcast is ongoing. I think that's pretty much it. I literally just got here from shooting on You're the Worst, so that's like the only thing that's in my brain right now. I'm probably forgetting something. But I will also give a major shout out to the Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is, yay! Which I've been doing more and more stuff with because I've had more time to do that, and so I'll be with them at the San Diego Comic-Con, and we're doing a Welcome to Night Vale Thrilling Adventure Hour crossover live show there that'll be really fun, and panels and signings and stuff like that. And I'll be doing the live shows as much as I can in Los Angeles. That's another really, really fun thing I get to do.
And one more. Sorry.
I feel like all my questions were my answers were too long, and that's why
Not
we
at all.
don't have time. So
Not
sorry
at all.
about that.
In the gray. Sorry.
Hi, Nicole from GamingSets.net.
Hey, Nicole.
So I have a question about The Legend of Korra. What do you feel was the hardest part of playing that character and trying to reenact, an avatar and making her a strong and powerful female character?
Yeah. Well, great question. It's funny because the only thing that's hard about it at all to me is the technical stuff. Because the writing is so amazing, because they just create this amazing world, and because now we sort of have a sense, although I never know how beautiful something's going to be until I'm doing ADR. When we get pulled in to do ADR for like the fight sequences and stuff, that's the first chance I get to see any of the animation. And we've recorded the episode itself such a long time ago that I don't even really remember doing it, which is probably another reason it's so easy to watch, because like I don't even remember it. So the technical stuff is what's tricky, because it's just hard to sync up like fight sounds and kicking sounds and all that. And that actually reminds me, speaking of upcoming stuff, I'm sure you guys already know about this, but one of the hardest things I've done as of late for Korra was recording the video game. And I'm so excited about the video game, and I just went in and did some ADR for that. But doing 5 straight hours of like screaming and kicking and panting and all of the stuff that video game characters do is exhausting. I can't. Friends of mine that do like almost exclusively video game voices, I don't even know how they have like a voice to just talk when they're not doing that. So that honestly is the hardest part. Everything else is like just the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, that concludes today's Press Junket. Jen and Varney will answer all your core questions from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 12th in panel room 7. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Janet.